Hello again from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. Former US Vice President Joseph Biden has injected some new vitality into his sagging election campaign by winning the Democratic primary in South Carolina clearly. This is seen as a major victory for him because otherwise he could well have been on his way out of the race. And then enough moderate and centrist Democrats probably want to team up in order to defeat the avowedly Democratic Socialist Senator Bernard Sanders from Vermont, who has been lately the frontrunner in this election. South Carolina is also notable for the fact that a considerable percentage of the card-carrying Democrats identify with the pro-life position, at least moderately. So they are, at least in most cases, opposed to abortion. None of the remaining Democratic presidential candidates, however, can be classified even moderately as a pro-life person. They are all more or less pro-choice ones. And they all more or less accept or even, or at least tolerate the same-sex marriage. Let's look at the results then in more detail. According to the live results available on the Washington Post newspaper's website, Biden took 48.3% of the vote. And 36 delegates. Sanders took 19.9% of the vote with 11 delegates. Steyer took 11.3%, no delegates. Buttigieg, 8.2% of the vote and no delegates. And Warren, U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, 7.1% of the vote and no delegates. But of course, this coming Tuesday, March the 3rd, is a so-called Super Tuesday when there will be primaries in more than 10 states, and that could potentially tip the scales in favor of whoever is going to get elected as the Democratic presidential candidate, who will then face the largely unopposed, as far as the fellow Democrats are concerned in the primary, fellow Republicans are concerned in the primaries, U.S. President Donald Trump in November 2020. So it's still too early to say who will win the Democratic presidential nomination, except that that person is likely to be quite old and quite liberal, which doesn't bode well for their prospects of having a realistic chance to defeat Donald Trump, because they would have to have a sufficiently young and dynamic and sufficiently moderate and centrist candidate who could appeal to many of the floating voters who have no firm party allegiances, even in the elections.